Hey, greetings, Dr. Jeffrey Scott here. This is my Market MRI Pro update for Monday, July 14th, 2025. Over the weekend, it seemed like we'd have another rough session because of the tariff talks. Then we saw some, I would say, conciliatory moves by the EU. We saw improvement in the futures, and then by the time the day ended, it didn't feel like that negative a day at all. Um, Volume was relatively flat on the session. Um, NASDAQ was a little bit less than normal, NYSE a little bit more than normal, like plus or minus 1 to 2% for both of them. And we finished with small gains up 0.27 on the NASDAQ. On the Dow, we're up zero point 0.2 and the S&P 0.14. So we went from an ugly looking start of the weekend to interesting day on Monday. I think back to when I grew up. I think there was a song called "Let's Get Physical," and I think I would call it today "Let's Get Nuclear." And I think clearly there's a reason why utility stocks have been doing so well and of late, and it's just a small subset of them that support data centers and nuclear energy. So let's take a look at what happened in the markets. Again, Jeffrey Scott, MarketMRIPro at gmail.com. And the best way of reaching me is to join the Top Down Trader Google group. All right, let's see what we got. This is for educational purposes only. Anything I talk about should be taken in the spirit of education, not investment advice. The intent of the video is to demonstrate the tools of top-down analysis, how I apply them. Trading involves risk. You alone are solely responsible for any investment decisions you make. I may own or intend to buy or sell any stock mentioned in this report. Trading stocks and options should be considered risky, and it's always a great idea to speak with your investment professionals that are supporting you um, when you for your as a financial advisor. And I have tools for multiple platforms, but I'm an independent trader. My Google Groups called Top Down Trader. You just go to Google Groups, um, look for all groups, then type in Top Down Trader, three separate words, and then let me know how you want me to contact you. Um, it is no cost to it, and you get a discount on my software, and you get invited to things and videos that I don't post anywhere else. We talked about this over the weekend. Monday may have been a quiet day for news, but we got the CPI complex, Empire State Manufacturing Survey, and a lot of Fed governors starting to speak on Tuesday. We also, Tuesday morning, will start with some pretty big earnings. Looks like JP Morgan, Citi, Wells Fargo, BlackRock. I mean, BlackRock is the market, isn't it? As the week goes on, a lot of financials. We start to see some tech. We see Netflix. So I think it's just getting started. And it's a judgment call to hold stocks over earnings dates. It's bad judgment to not know when your stock's earnings date is scheduled. Our E-index, which is our leaders index that we put together in June, looked like it was going to break down. And it broke down below the 17th. It's still well above the 50. And then we had a nice reversal day, but it has to get above the 17 for me to believe it. So it's holding at support, well, right below support, I might say. So we'll see what happens there. We look for that to roll over as a sign that it's time to start thinking about the market topping. If you have questions or if you have Market MRI Pro and you have any questions about installation, if you're having any error messages, um, coding at marketmripro.com. If you are interested in Market MRI, which is a tool we're going to use, or for any information about it, just reach out to me and consider joining the Top Down Trader Google group. Someday I'll have a website. I'm old school. I like face-to-face webinar type communications, but I know a lot of people go and look for it, so we're building one. On to the charts. So let's just start with a look at how the markets performed. And we already talked about modest gains. Volatility was up 1.48, finishing at the high part of its day. Bitcoin was up 1.44, and it's in the midst of a pretty impressive run, but it was up as much as 3.35% during the day. On the equity side, all the major equities were up. Here's dollar in the middle, also up, led by the Russell and the Qs. And we look at the number of new highs, new lows, new highs, new lows, and new highs minus new lows on the NYSE and on the NASDAQ are just below 60. When we look at the S&P 500 sectors, we were led by communication, financials, real estate, industrials, there's your utilities, and upside down it was energy and materials, and technology was up a bit, but really not much on the session. Now, why didn't that? That was check that again. Communicate. Yep, that's what we were looking at. You see, tech was actually down 0.07. I was looking at the percent from the open. What was leadership? Uranium, nuclear, aerospace, blockchain, software rebounding after some tough days last week, biotech, cloud, social media, and fintech. So it looks like we rotated right back into the growth parts of the market. Here are three markets: the S&P 1500, the NASDAQ, um, and the NYSE. Um, each of those are, as you can see, trading the sectors versus the prior day markedly improved. Industry groups versus the prior day markedly improved, and the number of stocks that were up were 56% on the Nasdaq, on the S&P 1500, 55 on the Nasdaq, 52 on the NYSE. Clearly improved, not a great session, but you saw the indexes, they were up, but relatively modestly. What else can I tell you? If we go to our timing model, there'll be no change. The daily, we're just looking down here, green on all four spiders, Qs, diamonds, and Russell. We look at the weekly, and we continue to be all. And you can see we are clearly consolidating on the weekly chart, 3 weeks of sideways movement after breaking out of above the prior highs. If we look at the U.S. indexes a little bit more closely, let's open up the spiders to start. Again, another consolidating flat day, but a positive day, up 0.18%. And this green line here represents 10 years of seasonality. And we're getting to an area where we might see a little bit of a pause in the rally. It's not negative. It doesn't really start to drop until you get to the end of September. And September and October can be doozies. But we are flattening out on seasonality, at least on the spiders. We'll look at some of the divergence issues later on. On the diamonds, on the Qs rather, that's the next one in line. Again, similar story, a little bit better seasonality, at least for the next few days. Great V bottom action, all-time highs on the NASDAQ, not quite on the Qs today, I don't think. That looks like it's lower than this day. But great performance, pausing here to refresh, consolidation. I think that's healthy. Also seeing some rotation of new fresh meat into leadership. The diamonds, we've got, it's pretty clear now. I talked about it the last couple of days. Kind of got a little flag going on in here. And I guess we'll be looking for a breakout above that before we get too excited. And you can see a little bit more positive seasonality before it flattens out. All of these have the 17, the 50 crossing above the 200, almost there in the diamonds. It's already there in the Qs and the spiders. And so we've got a lot of support under here as well. If I take a look at the Russell, Russell's different in that it hasn't gotten close to old highs, but it's getting there. And it's actually had, you can see it's got all the way up here. It's had a great move off the bottom, and it was the leader today. And not quite a bullish engulfing pattern. And you could see the end of the year is really the season for small caps, and we're getting closer and closer. But we're going to get to a period of time where we lose a little bit of that seasonality advantage. Markets were up, but so was volatility, and we can see volatility here. If the VIX futures was up 4.88%, and then this might be somewhat concerning to some. Part of why I believe we've had this great rally off the April 7th lows, which, by the way, I had a video that day saying the bottom is in, is because we could play with this line. Maybe we put it here. I don't like when I did that. So goes there, and I would have to take this piece. I mean, wherever I want to draw that, this line here has been resistance over and over again, and we've broken through. So wouldn't surprise me at all to see the dollar rally. Will it get up to the 200? It's a long way. We'll even get above the 50. It's had a hard time breaking above the 50 for quite some time. But dollar strength, not always great for equities. If we look at commodities, money rotated back into stocks today, and you could see the results. Gold was down a bit, 0.37. Silver opened higher, closed lower. Classic red candle high was down 1.14. Oil failing at the 17 here was down 2.16. I try to ignore natural gas because it doesn't do me any good to watch it, but it's trying to make a run. But every time it gets up to that 200 or that's 50, it stumbles. Even when it breaks out, it stumbles. What's probably the only concerning thing or most concerning is the 10-year was up 0.23. The 30-year was up 0.38, and we got really close to that 5% area, which I think would be negative for the U.S. markets. The buckets show the distribution of the stocks within their Bollinger Bands. Bullish with more stocks up at the top than at the bottom, but frankly, nothing exciting, nothing showing that we're at risk of a pullback. My first market breadth tool, which is one we've seen, not a lot going on here. Stocks above the 20, 50, and 200, kind of flat on the session, up a little bit higher. Not much in volume. You could see a little bit of pullback on the NYSE. Here's the NASDAQ composite, new closing high. And you could see we closed here at 2640.33 versus 2630 versus 2611. So new high territory. Down below, the thing that was probably most concerning to me is we had another Bango, which is just another exuberant buying day. And if you look at new high, new lows, advanced declines, and up-down volume were all favorable. But, you know, it's a 50-50 stock day, and they're just up a little bit. The other thing I like to look at in breadth, it gets a little bit broader where we have the spider, the NASDAQ composite, the Russell 2000, the S&P 1500. And what I've been pointing out is we're either going sideways or setting new highs, but we're not on the RSIs. The RSI is dropping across the board. So that's a divergence that I think I'm concerned about. I do think we're getting toppy. I do think we could just go sideways or have a slight pullback and get through this. But I don't know what the next catalyst is to take us higher, especially since I'm not a believer that Powell's about to quit. It could happen, nor do I believe that we're going to get a Fed cut unless something bad happens with CPI and PPI. In fact, when you look at that slate of earnings this week, and you look at the CPI and PPI and all those speakers, I think that this is a week that could have a lot of volatility. Ratio charts is a tool I like to use that just gives me a sense of what's working now. Obviously, Bitcoin is, and these are the rest of these are the S&P sector ratio charts versus the spiders. This was a Bitcoin versus the spiders. You could see discretionary is coming up, industrials coming up, technology actually pulled back some today, but it's been a strong leader as well. So I put this together by saying markets remain at or near new highs. They don't seem to have a whole lot of oomph to the upside. However, they, may just do fine consolidating here for a while until they build up that energy to go to higher highs. And I think that is the bull case. The middle case is that we go sideways or pull back a bit for longer. And the bear case is that we've seen the high for the year. We come back down a lot. I don't think that's likely to happen. Hope not, because I'm still pretty darn long. Because the stocks went up, you would expect to see more stocks here, but you don't. So the impulse has 3,602. Basically, that's going to contain the stocks in the NASDAQ, NYSE, and Amex filtered for $1 and 100,000 shares. Let's go into the top-down view to start. Let's rank these by percent performance. Let's do the same thing over on industry groups. And we're going to ignore this one because we got to put those in the right place. Um, so if we look at utilities, communications, and financial services, all in all, it's 743 stocks. But let's really look at the top 10 or so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Top 10 of the industry groups in the top sectors. And let's then look here at number of dots, maybe, and maybe look for pullbacks and uptrend and put the $5 in the 500,000 shares. We got a couple of new systems that will be launching soon that I've now got in the staging. I can't wait to bring those to the market as well. So SMR, I think of this as small nuclear reactors. Um, this is a pattern that we saw on a lot of stocks, utilities that were related to energy and the nuclear power. SMR, New Scale Power, if we want to know when its earnings are, I flip it here. It's in August. It's not being driven by the earnings. It's probably not even being driven by the revenue. It's driven by the opportunity and the story of supplying power to the burgeoning number of data centers. Trump wants to quadruple output. That doesn't hurt this whole world. Um, it's actually a SPAC. Interesting. Now, if you're interested in any of these stories, all you got to do is find one you like and why this is the one nuclear to buy, and you click on that, and it'll bring up the article. You can read it at your own convenience. So SMR would have been one way to play this. Other utilities we talked about, we talk a lot about GE Vernova. This thing I like to buy after a sideways move and a breakout. It had a massive day today. It was up $15.88. CEG, Constellation Energy, talked about this one as well. But a couple of the uranium plays that didn't make it up here on the dots. But LEU is one that we mentioned over the weekend. I took a position in this today early on, and it opened a little lower, and I had a buy stop above the high of the prior day, and I got filled. And it's an expensive stock, and it's had a run already, so I took a cautious position, which means a broken wing butterfly. Decent size, so we'll see what happens with LEU. But the one I really liked, and I got lucky on this one, OKLO. I took this one early in the day, and this is one, and I don't use, gosh, minute charts or anything like that very often, but we actually got them in the program now. And something happened here. I go look at the news, and I had put an order in, and I filled it early in the day. I went to lunch. I came back, and my portfolio had popped. And the reason it popped was because of OKLO, one of these utilities in the nuclear space. So you saw I just put in 5 minutes and hit 5 and hit the minutes, and I got a 5 minute chart. You can do 1 minute if you want. I don't have any interest or need to do 1 minute charts because I'm an end of day trader. I don't even look at them. Let's go back to daily. So a nice move here. Again, I took a broken wing butterfly, and what I'm basically doing is I'm spending $5 on this one. I think I make 15 as the max, as the amount I make if it blows through the upper call. If it stops right perfect right before the short calls, I can make 20 on my 5, and then I just buy a big size of it because it's the most I can lose is what I paid on the premium. So Lou and OKLO, I think I bought something else today that didn't behave as well. So we talked about it Sunday in the build your options section. Again, I'm just trying new things. The feedback on that's been pretty good. It's a fair amount of work, but I don't mind because I learn every time I do anything. And what was the other one I bought? I'm just looking. Lu and OKLO, and I thought there was something else. Um, well, I guess it didn't fill. Huh. Oh well, it was the stock that we were talking about over the weekend. Let me just make sure. Nope. Oh yeah, I also took a position, not took a position, added to a position in Amazon. I talked about over the weekend that I thought Amazon was at an interesting place to buy. It was up a little bit, nothing meaningful. So that's what I did today. I still think these nuclear stocks look interesting. FLG, I don't know who this is. Who's FLG? Flagstar Financials. Um, why did it make the list? It's in an uptrend, kind of, sort of. If you draw your line down here, it is. It had a big move. It had a couple of dots. Try a different way of looking at this. Let's look at return percentage on the day. VBTX, don't know this one at all. It traded higher, came down to the bottom, and moved back up. It's financial services, I guess. Thought it was a community bank. All right, so regional bank and had a big gap up. There's one that's just funny that I don't see here. It was a healthcare company that was up massive today, and then you look at why it was up massive. It was up massive because it was turning itself into a Bitcoin company. Um, Root is another financial services. Had a big move up. It's kind of trading down. I love the name Lemonade, another financial services insurance company. Reversing here right above the 50 flag. That might be an interesting one. We'll have to see what develops as well. So not seeing a whole lot I love here. Again, it was a positive day in the market, but modestly so. That's doing it from a top-down perspective. I like doing it from a bottoms up as well. So let's just go back to the bottoms up. And here I'm just applying some systems to it. So um, one way is to, again, what I just did there, but on a bigger group, $5 and 500 limits, mediums. And I want to look at pullbacks on an uptrend, hit OK. I'm going to rank it by dots. And this is so I don't find things that are overly extended. TZUP, thumbs up media. I don't think so. Thomas Reuters, something must have happened today. Was it earnings? Nope. Did they buy something? Agentic AI platform targets professional workflow automation. No, that's not even today. Um, don't know why Thomson Reuters was up so much. Here's a stock, a name that I've been in and out of over the years, and Shopify kind of looks a lot like Amazon here, getting ready to go higher. PBI, Pitney Bowes, an old industrial name. So you can find stocks that are hopefully not too extended. I look up here, make sure it's below 95. Sobo, is that the one? No, that's not the one that had the crazy day. Trying to think what the name of that stock was that had the crazy day today. I guess it doesn't matter. Oh, I did it. Let's do this by percentage. Yeah, it may not have made my cut because of volume, historical volume. We looked at Red Cat over the weekend, talked about this one was very interesting from a chart pattern. Clean breakout. Again, I'd still have to sort out the mess that's going on. But look at the wall of blue dots, the wall of volume. This looks really interesting to me. There's that SMR. There's my OKLO. And then another one we talked about over the weekend was MicroStrategy, now called Strategy. And this one is tied to Bitcoin in so many ways. It's a leveraged play of Bitcoin. And it's broke out today as well. Nice session there. So a lot of things are moving. Here's my Lou, which we talked about before. I'm still cautious here. I'm going to look at opportunities. Um, I think that Lou and Oklo still are interesting to me. And another way, Oklo has not taken out its prior high. That one seems to have room to go. And then we have CCJ as another nuclear. This is probably the best of the uranium companies, and it looks like it's poised to go higher, but it's expensive. So Lots of neat things going on today. I think NNE is that another one of these nano nuclear, small nuclear energy companies. A lot of these don't make any money. Some of them are waiting on government approvals for what they do. So I think we just do status quo, and I may look back at the same plays I took today. I'm also interested in Google, which I talked about over the weekend, but I didn't pull the trigger today because it traded above and came back down below this line. I like this line because it's been resistance. If it trades above the line, I'll probably enter Google, will be my next trade. Have an awesome, awesome, awesome day in the market on Tuesday. Um, Market rotation tops are not fun times. You could see volatility. Be careful. Don't be a hero. And remember, if we do get a pullback, raise cash because when we get to really nice lows, you got to have money left to buy things. Take care, everybody.